Robin? Robin, can you hear me?
Ellie, you have my name.
Ready.
Robin, can you hear me?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first panel of the Sustainable America Summit. I have the pleasure of introducing our panelists for this first conversation called Good for Business, Good for Planet, where we'll be talking about how businesses prioritize sustainability and create opportunities within their company for environmental sustainability practices. Joining us today, we have Bill Brierley, the Vice President, Head of Compliance and Ethics at Liberty Latin America, Andres Barbero, Director of CSR and Environmental Sustainability for DirecTV Latin America, joining us from Argentina, and Veleslava Ivanova, the America's Climate Change and Sustainability Services Leader for EY, who will be our moderator today. Thank you so much, and we hope you will enjoy this conversation.
Hi, Robin. Hi, everybody. Are you hearing me okay? Okay, excellent. Good morning, everybody. Really excited to host this panel today. My name is Veli Ivanova, and I lead the climate change and sustainability practice for EY for the Americas. We have a team of about 160 people from Canada, US, Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, really young people who are dedicated their professional career to sustainability, and I'm really excited to host today two other leaders in the sustainability space, Bill and Andreas, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves first and also quickly cover what their roles in their respective companies are. So Bill, over to you.
Thank you, Veli, and a pleasure to be with everyone this morning. I'm Bill Brierley. I'm a Vice President and Head of Compliance and Ethics at Liberty Latin America, a telecommunications company that's focused its operations in the Caribbean and Latin America. And I also head up our ESG task force for Liberty Latin America. So pleasure to be with you today and look forward to a lot of great questions. Thanks, Veli.
Thanks, Bill. Andres, over to you.
Hello, well, my name is Andres Barbero. I work from Buenos Aires, where I'm right now, for DirecTV. You know, AT&T is our mother company, so we work closely with them, with the sustainability team in the US. And my job is related to all that has to do with corporate social responsibility and the environment, how to reduce our impact to it.
Excellent. Thanks, Andreas. And let me jump quickly in some questions. We're obviously really looking forward to hearing from the audience and getting some questions from everybody online. So please do ask as many questions as you would like. But I would like to start with a question about the two companies that Bill and Andres are representing and ask you how your companies are working towards embedding sustainability in your core business processes, in your teams, in your products. I know that both of you came through different career paths into sustainability, so I'm really, really curious to hear, again, how your companies are embedding sustainability in what you do.
Bill, please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Veli. It's, you know, we're a relatively new company. So we spun out of Liberty Global at the end of 2017, 2018. So we're just beginning our journey right now on sustainability. And the first thing that we're doing, and I think a lot of companies go through this, is we set up a series of 3 pillars and that'll guide us through this journey. And we're also beginning to gather some baseline information and begin to map out how we're going to address all of the ESG components that we look at as a company. We've also adopted a framework for how we're going to proceed. That's the SASB framework. And we have a task force team that's been assigned to the process. So we're at the beginning of incorporating it in, but I think we've got all of the elements in place so that when we have this conversation 2 or 4 years from now, we will certainly be able to report out on exactly how we've done all that.
And Bill, I'm curious, you mentioned the task force. Which functions from the organization are represented on the task force?
So we've taken everywhere from all of the major operations that we have. So certainly we have legal, we have the people team, and we'll get into this later. I think the people team is a huge component, especially on the local basis. Our IT or T&I team, the technology and infrastructure team, as well as our finance and investor relations people. As a publicly traded company, you always have to take a look not only at how you're going to make an impact upon your employees and other stakeholders, but also what are investors looking for. And I think investor relations is a key component of that.
Yes, I agree, particularly with all the interest that we've seen in the past 18 months from the investor community. They've really been driving their decision-making, how they invest, how they allocate capital, using a lot of ESG criteria. So definitely a very important stakeholder. How about your personal journey? I know that you started your career not in sustainability, but actually moved into sustainability from ethics and compliance perspective. So if you can just tell us how you're merging your role in ethics and compliance and sustainability, I think it will be interesting to hear from you about that, just because, again, it shows how much sustainability now is a core function in the organizations.
Absolutely. I've had an interesting journey. So I was a litigator to begin with, was general counsel of a publicly traded company, moved to ethics and compliance, and now in incorporating sustainability into that. So for all you lawyers out there, there is hope outside of being exclusively just a lawyer. So anyway, I think that the function of ethics and compliance and the sustainability or an ESG focus go hand in hand. What you try to do in compliance and ethics is build a culture of people thinking about each other, caring about the business, and wanting to invest in a culture that really takes ethics and compliance seriously. And I think sustainability is a perfect offshoot to that. I think if you take a look at there's three legs of the stool here. One is the health and safety, which a lot of companies built on. You move that into ethics and compliance, and now you have sustainability. And I think for a lot of companies, that creates a very viable way for companies, either one of those aspects, to create a culture of people focused on sustainability and focused on the components that make up a successful program.
Completely agree. And I think, and Andres, you had a different journey that led you to sustainability as well. Similar to Bill, you started in a different function, and now you're really embedding sustainability in the core functions and core teams of the organization where you work with your current role, but you started in internal audit, I believe.
Yes, that's right. My first few years with DirecTV were with the internal audit team and with a processes area. I was working on that. So maybe by that time I was also the ethics officer for Argentina. So I think it's not just coincidence that maybe we were picked for these roles when they started to appear. It's a huge thing that we know that we have to do the right thing, and that we put some thought on that, and on the agenda we make it clear that that's the essential thing to sustainability. Even I think most companies, when they make mistakes regarding their sustainability strategies or even corruption, or we can recall some companies maybe jumping some tests or committing fraud in terms of what their products were like or what they should be like. Many things are related to the pressure of the business into the management. And when they receive this huge pressure, if they are not really trained and educated into the ethics behind sustainability and how to do the right thing, there's a possibility that we can make a mistake there. So
I agree. It's so important to bring the core business roles, the core business functions, the purpose, the business goals of a company into the conversation of sustainability and really align them. So Bill was telling us, Andres, that they're just starting their journey around sustainability. AT&T has been on sustainability journey for quite a few years now. So maybe you can tell us what is the latest, the most exciting initiatives that you're working on right now in AT&T? Related to sustainability.
Yes, well, maybe I come from DirecTV, as I told you, so it was a bit of a clash of cultures when AT&T acquired DirecTV, because we were a young company. We have less than 25 years now, and AT&T has more than 100 years. So we had to adapt one to each other. But as you said, sustainability has already gone through a pretty long path, especially in our core company. We have an established team, and our Chief Sustainability Officer reports regularly to the board, so they are aware of our strategy, of our results, receive advice. So it's already right in the core of the business. What it's been done, I think the path that Bill explained earlier is really important, and probably makes a lot of sense to most of the companies. Start with what is it, what's the right thing, and the ethics behind everything, and then maybe move to safety of our employees. So many basic things that now we take for granted many times, but in the past were not part of the culture. If we go way past, maybe, I don't know, child labor was part of culture and was not seen as something crazy, I don't know, 100 years ago or more. But things change, and companies should accompany these trends, because what I usually say is companies are just groups of people. They're made of people. They don't come from anywhere. And the people that makes the company also evolve with education and culture changes, and start demanding or want to lead a company that goes with those new ways of doing things.
Yeah.
So,
You mentioned that you report to the board regularly. Do you have sustainability goals? Do you track and report progress against them? Do you engage the board in those conversations, Andres?
yes. Well, the one who interacts directly with the board is our Chief Sustainability Officer, Charlene Lake, who sits in Dallas. But I know that she is requested to report in detail, not just strategy or plans moving forward, but results on previous objectives and targets that were set. A recent example of a new target that we're pursuing took place in September during it was Climate Week.
Climate Week, yeah.
In New York. Well, our CEO announced that we were going to become carbon neutral. We committed to that by 2035. It was something that we still had not announced before. We were really analyzing that we could do it, and by the time we were sure, and I was part of the people consulted, like it wasn't just AT&T at the top, but they asked their different companies and the Latin American countries, can you make it? Will we get there? And once they were really sure, he committed to that. And I think it's a start of many things and plans and projects that will have to take place in order for us to reach that goal.
Yeah, I can actually relate to that. We at EY also have a carbon neutrality goal actually by at the end of this year. And for us, obviously, travel is a huge component as a professional services firm, but we are also looking at offsets. We're looking at a renewable credit, energy credit. So definitely that's a big trend that we're seeing with many, many companies committing to carbon neutrality or even carbon zero or carbon positive. goals in their sustainability programs. Both of you mentioned that you engage with others in your organizations, the board, the different functions that we discussed. How do you engage with other stakeholders, such as your employees, on a more regular basis? How do you engage with future employees? How do you engage with outside of the organization, with external stakeholders? Again, we know that customers these days are very passionate about sustainability. The communities where we all operate, Bill and I sit in Denver, Andres, you're obviously in Brazil, but how do you engage with your stakeholders just to get their perspective, their desired outcomes of your sustainability programs? And maybe, Bill, I can start with you, since you're just launching the journey, and I think you have the opportunity again to hear from many of your stakeholders as you're moving forward.
Absolutely, and great question, and I think it's something you always have to analyze as you're going through the process, whether it's sustainability or ethics or any program that you implement, is how are you meeting the needs of different stakeholders? And I think first it's identifying those. So I think you've identified the base ones, which is certainly your employees. And what we've done there is we've set up a web page on our intranet for our ESG task force and let everybody know what we're doing as a task force, and we'll regularly update that. We just sent that out recently within the last month or so, and we will continually update that with employees. Second, on employee engagement, I'm a big believer of this. I did this at my former company, is we will get ambassadors in each one of our locations. One person who is kind of our on-the-ground evangelist, if you will, for what we're trying to do from a sustainability standpoint. And that person will set up brown bags and different things with the local teams to let them know what we're doing. Because as much as we all rely on intranet traffic and emails and things like that, those meetings in the office when everybody gets back into the office will be key. And we do want somebody dedicated on the ground about that. Certainly with investors, we're adopting a framework, and we'll do an annual report on that. And that'll be the baseline that we give to everybody about how we're doing and how we're measuring ourselves against our goals. I think governments are an important partner for us. In many of our markets, we interact regularly with the government, and they have their goals that they want to meet as well, and we want to be part of that. Sustainability is not just environmental. It's also about how are you serving the needs of your community. So we've also looked at the community, and that's our customers. How are we improving accessibility to broadband in all of our markets? How are we improving accessibility not only in terms of urban and rural areas, but in terms of different income classes? Are we offering products that allow lower income people the same experience that higher income people experience in a broadband and internet world? So we're looking at it from all of those different aspects, Belly, and I think that's the way that you need to approach it. We'll keep reassessing that year after year.
Absolutely. You mentioned regulators. I'm just really curious to hear from you now what you're seeing in other geographies outside of the US, and any really leading or good practices that you can share from the countries in Latin America where you're really seeing progress towards working with governments around sustainability. Obviously, we have the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals that was launched by the United Nations a few years ago, and I've seen a lot of organizations actually align their sustainability goals with the Sustainable Development Goals in a way to leverage the collective power of governments, business, communities towards making progress against the SDGs. But I'm really curious to know if you can share maybe some good examples of working with governments in countries in Latin America.
Certainly. We're beginning the process. So I think for us, sustainability, probably the most important area that we've worked with governments most recently is on the resilience of our network in times of crisis. We operate the largest subsea network, and we are one of the largest telecom providers in the Caribbean. And so when hurricanes come through, and knock on wood, it's been a bad season, but for our markets, it's been relatively good. But we want to be prepared for when they hit, because they will. And so working with governments to make sure that we're building a resilient network so that in times of crisis, the same communications infrastructure that people depend on every day is able to be brought back up in a quick time. And that's sustainability.
Right.
That is a component of what we're doing. And then also working with those governments and developing bigger plans to make sure that we're addressing the issues of climate change as they affect our markets uniquely. And I think that's an important aspect that people building a program need to look at. How can your business goals intersect with your sustainability goals? For us, climate change is an imperative because as you look at the hurricane seasons and sea level rise, those impact our business directly. So we really want to be taking concrete steps to address climate change while at the same time improving resilience.
Absolutely. Again, to me, climate change is really manifested in floods, droughts, hurricanes, and those have huge impact on the assets of your organization. So absolutely, it's about business sustainability for the long run, not just
Absolutely.
sustainability as it is defined by people, profit, planet, but again, sustainability of the business that you operate. So Andres, the same question to you. How do you engage with stakeholders? What are some of the best practices that you can share with us around your engagement with employees, with investors, similar to what Bill was discussing, with the local communities, governments? I'm really particularly interested in your perspective because you sit outside of the US, you're in Brazil, and I'm sure you can share some good stories with us.
Yes. Well, sorry, I'm sitting in Argentina, not Brazil.
In
but we're
Argentina,
neighbors.
sorry, Argentina.
Except for soccer, we get along very good with Brazil.
Right. Apologies for
And-
that. Of course, you're
No,
in
please.
Argentina.
Well, one of the first things I see as key to develop a good engagement is to build trust, and this cannot be achieved from one day to the other. It takes a long time of walking your talk and showing results. But once you have done that, our next step is also to start communicating whatever is it that your company does and that you're proud about. It should be communicated. I was told once, because when I started on this job, I was a little reluctant to go and tell, hey guys, we're good, we are doing all of this. It sounded like a little bit not right. But then somebody told me, you're being selfish if you just, you are the one that knows the good stuff, the good things that are going out there. So you should share them with all of our stakeholders. And that was a good advice. So once you're doing the right thing, well, communicating is one key aspect. And in terms of especially our employees, our partners in the company, also if we can make them part of sustainability, either environmental or social, that's also a great way of getting them engaged. Like easy things like volunteerism activities, which by themselves, one volunteerism activity maybe won't change the world, but shows the employees about different realities, especially hard realities, takes them to a field, shows them what's going on in the communities, and put their little help there with their own hands. And then when they go back home, they both feel that the company helped them see these tough situations, and that now it's a challenge for them to find some way to continue to develop some help to these needed communities. So it's kind of engaging them in practice, you see. But other than that, of course, teaching them with different internal communication tools about good practices towards the environment, things they could do at home, in the office, and showing them new ways in which the company is taking care also of our own impact, so that we feed each other with good practices, because employees are also available. I mean, they can provide also advice to us and show us what they do. So it's when communication starts to flow, things get much better, and we can tell that they are being engaged truly.
That's a very good point about flow of communication, and I think both of you alluded to that. Bill, you mentioned you have an internal website, I think, where employees can share their ideas, and Tracy obviously mentioned as well that you have a two-way communication. So I'm really curious to hear what you're hearing from your employees. What really the employees care most about?
I think for us, it shows a commitment to the long term, and that's what employees want. They want to know as well that we're making a difference locally and globally. So I think that became very clear to us as we talked to employees about this. We are also including in our annual survey of employees some questions to make sure that we're still going the same way. So we want to make sure that we're constantly checking in with our employees and meeting their expectations. But I think certainly if I were to boil it down to 2 or 3 things, it's one, that we're invested in it. We're not just paying lip service to it, that we're doing taking actual concrete action. 2, that investment is from the top down, and it's throughout the organization. It's not just employees locally wanting to do something, but it's the board on through even our newest employee who understand that commitment. And 3, that it is a global view, so that we're not only doing something locally, for example, like a beach cleanup, which is a very good thing, but we also want to take action that is going to have a concrete impact on some of the more global issues, such as access to broadband, and sustainability and global climate change. So I think those are the types of things that employees have told us that we want to focus on, and we're certainly doing that.
Awesome. That's really inspiring to hear that you have such a broad focus on the material topics for your company, again from a business perspective, but also from stakeholder perspective. And Andres, I know when we spoke on Friday, you mentioned that when you have not just the employees, but your executive leadership team participate in some of the initiatives that you have on the ground, they're inspired and they're learning as well from the initiatives that you have on the ground. So I think you mentioned about one of your probably the local CEO in Argentina working with you on an initiative and the feedback that you received from that initiative. So again, what do you hear from all employees from all levels, from the CEO to the newest employee, as Bill was mentioning? What is their passion? What is their interest around sustainability?
Yes. Well, first I'll give the global scope and then probably tell you about this anecdote with our CEO. But same as Bill said, the long-term commitment is key, and I think is one of the most demanded issues from our employees. Then I'd say also that at some point we can use the core of our business sustainability-wise. I mean, do right from what we produce or a service, and for that maybe I have a couple of examples. For example, reducing our set-top box size, that produced size and energy consumption. So it's millions of our set-top boxes out there which use energy to work. The less energy they use, the less impact, of course, of our product in the world. And regarding its size, both packaging is reduced a lot when the size of the set-top box is reduced, and also logistics costs, because you can pack many more set-top boxes if their size is smaller than before. So those were key things that we did, and when we did them, we told our employees, well, look, we're doing this, and that's, they say, well, we are attacking the core of our business, so that's something good, and that should be done. Even silly things like e-billing. Sometimes in Latin America, it's not that easy because of different regulations, or sometimes lobby with the mail and the prints with the governments or whatever. But we have been also increasing a lot our e-billing, but it has taken a lot of work, mostly to customers and some work with the government as well to make it possible. And well, regarding the we were talking on Friday, a CEO coming to a volunteerism activity where you should paint a wall, for example, it's maybe quite an expensive way of painting a wall instead of hiring a professional painter or somebody who does know how to do the job. But having the CEO there and looking at what's going on around him makes him conscious again of how important it is for the company to go out to the community and do something about them, help them out. If it is with what we know best, the better. And for that, I have another example, which is our education and TV educational program, which is called Escuela Plus. And it's based on installing our services in rural schools of South America for them to access content that will help, educational content that will help teachers to run classes in a more entertaining way. We not only install the service, but we train the teachers to use it properly in small, short segments. And we're talking about schools which, in most of the times, they don't even have connectivity. And there's lots of them in Latin America. So this technology is the one that really can reach them all, because the satellite is very federal. It doesn't discriminate because it gets everywhere. So that is very appreciated. And we have seen lots of examples of creativity and innovation in the classroom from the teachers on, for example, teaching geometry out of soccer matches, because the soccer players stand in different formations and they can say, oh, this is a triangle, see, between these three guys who are standing on the pitch, and things like that. So many I cannot tell. But engaging a CEO in a volunteerism activity has that purpose to make him feel or sense what's happening out there and have him committed to help out with whatever new program or initiative we might have.
Excellent. I think you gave us some very, very good practical examples how good for business could be good for the planet as well. I mean, the boxes that you described, again, reducing natural materials being used, reducing energy in the production, but also, again, making very specific business impacts as well. So I think that thank you for those examples. Really, really interested to hear on the ground what you're doing with practical components of your business. We actually have a question here, and I would like to encourage everybody who is participating to ask more questions using the Q&A function at the bottom. Please, tap in Bill's and Andres' experience and ask questions. The questions that we received is, how again sustainability is integrated across the company versus just in one department. And I think you've provided some good examples how the different functions are represented, how everybody has a role to play. But I think, again, the question here that we received is more focused on, is it just the sustainability manager? Is it just the sustainability department? How do you work with others in making sustainability part of your core business?
I'll start off here and continue the pattern. I think it's a good reason why you see Andres and I leading this, because whether you're working as a lawyer, as an internal auditor, or as an ethics and compliance person, getting the buy-in of different people in your program throughout the company is imperative. I think you need to have a central function to process everything, if you will, because you do need to gather some data. That's an important element of it. You do need to have kind of a central way of communicating everything to people, and then more important, or equally as importantly, communicating that upward to the executives and to the board. But you do need to find those relationships within a company built on, as Andre said, on trust. People need to trust that you're doing the right thing and you're doing it for the right reasons, and then they can rely on you to bring them good data as to why this makes sense. And when you build those relationships across the other departments, what you get are champions not officially assigned to you in a department, but they're champions for what you're trying to do in each department. And that is really how you go about doing it, whether it's ethics, whether it's sustainability, whether it's health and safety. As soon as you get people to trust in your message and to trust in the goals, you begin to get people who carry your message throughout the organization without really having to have them as part of the group.
Awesome, Andres.
Yes. Sorry, I forgot to the previous question. A third issue I should also add in terms of employees' interests is diversity too. It's really, really present, and we are taking care of that. Mostly, I mean, with the human resources, the human resources team, but we've been helping them out. And I remembered, because I was going to come with one example now, which is related to how engaged other teams within the company, is also trying to find projects in which they are key, or they are a key part of those. And one example is I got to know from our neighbors in the office space. It's a German software company, SAP, you know it? Well, SAP has a huge worldwide program for autism at work, it's called. And so they are, I think, the company that hires the most people with autism in the whole world. So they told us about the program, and we adapted some of its features to our reality and what we needed. But it was the sustainability area who find out about it, and then ask human resources, hey, come here, there's something very interesting I would like you to help me with. And actually it was not help me with it, but take the lead and do it yourself. I will help you. Maybe a similar process had to do with the procurement of renewable energy. And this example is from the US. At some point, sustainability was the area which was most interested in buying renewable energy, because it was going to be a reduction in our impact, and that's one of our goals. But then the people in charge of the energy and the whole cell phone network around the country, which purchases millions of dollars in energy, was just interested in having the network working, no problems, no trouble, and if possible, with a cheap procurement, right? And when they were challenged by the sustainability team, please help me out, because we can find some vendor which will provide us the energy in a smooth way and probably will be saving money. So they opened their eyes. What's that, really? And they joined and they engaged, and we really did found those opportunities. And today, I mean, it's been in the last three years probably that we increased the procurement of renewable energy in the US in a huge way, and put us now in between the top players in terms of buying power of renewables. And now we are finding our first pilot projects in Mexico and Argentina, where we already are sourcing a little bit of renewable energy, also with savings compared to the regular purchasing. So those are a couple of examples I can come of really engaging other areas when you find things to do with them.
Awesome. I think those are very practical examples. So thank you for that. And actually your SAP example, it's a very nice segue to one of the questions that we received from the audience about collaborating with other companies on achieving and pushing towards more sustainable future for all of us. So I'm interested again to learn, based on the audience question, how you're working with others. How do you collaborate with others to push sustainability in your particular sector, as well as in the communities where you operate? Do you have collaborations in place? Do you learn from other companies? Do you interact with other companies just to collectively move the needle towards more sustainable future for all of us? So Bill, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure thing. Again, we're new, so again, we're just building the process. But I think I'll answer that in two ways. One is, what is the goal of your program? I think that's one way that you look at it. And I would say within the telecommunications space, our goal, just it is like with our ethics and compliance, is to build a program that becomes a hallmark of how you build a program in the telecommunications space, in the broadband telecommunication space, the mobile telecommunication space, and everything else. So one, we're going to influence through the way we build the program and kind of show the way for other companies. The other way that we've really put one of our pillars together on it is ensuring, and this is one of our 3 pillars, we've got 3 pillars: sustainable business practices, supporting local communities, and then doing business the right way. One of the things that we're doing in the do business the right way is we will ensure through the supply chain that every one of the suppliers commits to our principles, not only from a human capital standpoint, but also from an ethics and compliance standpoint, and for this discussion from a sustainability standpoint. So you're going to have to meet all 3 of those goals for us to be a supplier with us. And we will work with companies to make sure that they can meet that. So we're going to work with our supply chain to make sure that they're doing that. And I think that's Andres probably has more concrete examples for that, but that's certainly the way we're approaching it right now.
Yeah, I do agree that, again, your supply chain is a key component of your sustainability program success. So collaborating with suppliers is a really good starting point.
And I'll just add one more thing. I think one of the beauties of the ethics and compliance community, we share materials, we share programs, we share experiences. We're the only people who can talk to each other about the things that we do in that space. I think sustainability is the same way. I won't give any company anything that we've developed for them to use. So I think that's another beautiful part of this program, is whereas in the past was, business plans and those kind of things you can't, but if you want to know how to build a program, we'll work with you on building a program. If you want to know how to measure how you use electricity or anything like that, we'll help you do that. I think that openness is just a great thing between companies in these spaces.
Awesome. Andres, I'm sure you have collaborations in place and at all levels, regional, corporate. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your experience in collaborating with others.
Yes. First of all, I completely agree with Bill. With one of the most satisfactory things about our work has to do with this unselfishness of the companies and the people when it comes to share good practices and ideas and information, because we all want to raise the bar and to have a good impact in the environment and the community, because we are people. We want that. So it's not that there's a winner and a loser in this race. We either all win or not. So that's the first thing. In terms of examples, well, I was telling you about Escuela Plus, where we installed this service in the rural schools. We have a channel, a special channel, which only these teachers and these schools can see. And that channel has hours of programming, which we alone couldn't fill. So we went and asked other, well, they are customers for us at a point, but they are also suppliers. Channels such as Disney with Nat Geo as well, and Discovery, which provide great educational content, to join and partner us and give it to us for free. And they did. So we are partners in this program for more than 10 years. And well, we put the hardware and we broadcast the signals, but they provide the content in many ways. So it's a very, very nice partnership, which later allowed us for other programs. For example, in Latin America, a few years ago, the first sustainable school was built in Uruguay, in the country of Uruguay. It was a project led by Unilever, which by that time was almost alone, but we noticed towards the end of the project that we could help by providing some additional energy, renewable energy for the project, and we did. So it was meant to be just a local project. But then I challenged Unilever and told them, won't you do it in other places, in other countries in Latin America? We can help you. Okay, maybe we didn't think about that before, but could be. So we met in Argentina. I invited some other companies which might be interested so that we could grow and scale the project. And Disney was the one who joined the first because we knew and we had collaborated before in this Escuela Plus program. And by doing so, well, we were able to build another school in Argentina and another one in Chile this year, in Chile. And we are going to build one in Colombia probably next year, and the program is still going on. Just a couple examples I could
Awesome.
think.
These are awesome examples on the ground. I think, showing how businesses can collaborate in sustainability, not just for their own purposes, but for the purposes of pushing the sustainability agenda forward within business across different regions, as well as, again, in the alignment when the key purpose of an organization like yours organization. So I'm very, very grateful for all the thoughtful and insightful questions from the audience. I think we're almost at the hour. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Andres, for your thoughts, for your insights. Good luck with your sustainability programs going forward. As we all continue to collaborate, as we all continue to work towards meeting the sustainable development goals and pushing the sustainability agenda, not just for the purposes of the planet, but the purposes of all the stakeholders that we discussed during our conversation. So thank you very much for that. And I'm sure that if the audience has additional questions, I believe they have our contact details, so they can reach out and ask more questions, how you're moving your programs going forward. Thank you very much.
Billy, thank you. Great job.
Thank you, Veli.
Thank you. Thanks,
And
everybody.
Rodney.
Have a great week.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to come on and thank our panelists for joining us today. This was an amazing conversation, and I really hope that the audience had a chance to feel that their questions were answered. And if you do have follow-up questions, I know that they are all happy to continue this conversation. We hope that you'll join us this afternoon for our second panel conversation at 2 p.m. Mountain Time for a conversation on regenerative tourism, and continue to follow along with all of the events that we have in store this week for the Sustainable America Summit. Thank you so much to all three of our panelists, and we hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you,
Talk
Robert.
soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.